Clayface is hitting the DCU this October, and joining us here at San Diego Comic-Con to talk about it is the star of the movie, Tom Rhys Harries, and director James Watkins. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Now, you've just released the second trailer for Clayface, which looks incredible. And something that I really notice is that we've had comic book movies in the past sometimes evoke a genre and then show off footage that looks like maybe it's living in that genre, and then the final product maybe doesn't go quite as hard in the paint as you'd want to see. Is that the case with Clayface? Like, are we going pretty hard into horror?
No, we go really hard.
Yeah.
You won't be disappointed if you buy a ticket for this film wanting a horror film, horror thriller. Yeah. It's a real roller coaster ride. There's lots of moments of ick, looking away. I mean, even on set when we were filming it, there were moments where we did a scene. Actually, it's that scene there where he's looking at his eye and he has a problem with his eyes, and he's on an airplane. Yeah. And he goes into the bathroom of the airplane and has to try and fix his eye. And there's turbulence going on when he's trying to do it. And probably 50 members of crew were like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, we see you get audible gasps from crew members that I could hear from the booth that we were shooting that thing in.
That must be like jet fuel when you're in the middle of making the movie, though, when you can even get the crew unsettled with some of the effects that you're working with.
I think that scene in particular, and there are a number of different scenes that read on the page as being cinematically very interesting and effective within that space. But I remember reading the airplane sequence, and it just translates to screen really well.
Yeah. Well, let's actually talk about the script a little bit. This is rooted in a Mike Flanagan script, a horror luminary at this point. What was the most attractive thing about that script for each of you wanting to join the project?
Well, firstly, the world of Gotham, and then the character, both the Matt Hagen and the Clayface. And so, I mean, the script evolved a lot once I came on board. But Mike had written a script that had the bones of it, this sort of evolution of a sort of story of is he a man, is he a monster, and what's within us and how we control ourselves. Are we subject to our emotions? It just created a really potential for us to keep digging and digging and digging, and that's something we did in terms of how to explore this kind of anti-hero story.
I'd come on board 3-4 months prior to us starting shooting, so James and I had a lot of conversations about building Matt out and how we'd introduce Matt into this world of Gotham. And the psychology of a character like Clayface is sort of very ample ground for you to be playing.
Yeah, and especially as an actor, this is somebody who's trying to change his face anyway, like connecting that into all the character work it looks like you guys are working with is very exciting.
Well, also the superpower, the shape-shifting superpower. So if you take somebody who is like one of the world's best actors, then he's got that ability to put it on, to take that and to take it to another level because he's already got that within him.
Then we're amplifying that to horrific.
The reason we laugh because we had this on-set joke that basically it's like, okay, you're playing.
How do you play the world's best actor? It's sort of like an impossible task. And then me desperately asking James not to shoot any of my acting in situ in the film, which you'll have to watch the film to see if it happens. But yeah, it's an impossible task.
Yeah. What was the trick? What was your trick to performing as the best actor in the world?
I'm not sure I necessarily had one. Avoiding those scenes as best as possible, pitching that we did.
It's really hard acting.
Yeah.
But there's not much of that in the movie at all, to be honest. I mean, the film is not an inside Hollywood story at all. It's a story about it's a really relatable story about a guy who basically loses his identity because of what happens to him. And it's how do you try and get that back? And I think that's something that can relate to everybody.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Gotham. This is going to be the first time that we're seeing Gotham City in the DCU, like on the big screen, which is very exciting. Were there any sort of directives or conversations with James about how he wanted Gotham represented in this first foray out?
There were never any directives from James at all. I had some great conversations with him and with Peter. Absolutely. But it's... from when I started talking to them, when we started a conversation, I said, and my production designer, James Price, who I've worked with a few times, and he did Poor Things. He won an Oscar for that. He's a brilliant production designer. And we talked about how Gotham is a character and how we wanted to create that world, and how there's a sort of gangster capitalism to that world. There's a dirt to that world. There's a sort of the sodium light that Rob Hardy brought, the old lenses that he brought, that sense of sort of a slightly throwback to the world, and as a character that really lends itself to a kind of noir. So we looked at German expressionism and all those sorts of things in terms of this world that's slightly closing in on you, and so that we did a lot of work trying to create the world of Gotham.
And was that intended to sort of amplify this? I mean, like, even looking at this scene from the plane, like, there is a claustrophobic feel to some of the horror we've gotten a taste of in the trailers, which is like, it's Matt's face closing in on itself and he's suffocating, you know. How are those scenes to play? Like, how do you communicate that sort of terror?
I think all of what James is saying in the whole world and the practical prosthetics that we used, which are sort of littered throughout the whole thing, it adds towards that feeling of sort of being suffocated and Matt's world closing in on him, and then how he sort of fights out to break out of that.
And the film does definitely close in, increasingly subjective, and you feel that sense of how it goes. But what Tom was saying about those prosthetics, and I should shout out to Legacy and Nicole Stafford, our makeup designer, but Legacy, the team that did all the prosthetic makeup. It really is doing it live on, you know, it really helped, and Tom can talk to this, inform performance when there was times when that weight of makeup on your face and the sense and the layers and how people view you, right? It just you can feed off that, right?
100%. The sequence in the aeroplane, all of that is practical. That's and we'd have to have I'd have to have a handler on set to walk me through the set, because obviously my vision is like completely impaired. So that doesn't stop me from walking into any of the walls, but all of it feeds into aiding performance.
Yeah. Now, obviously, Clayface is a character who we've not seen in live action before. He has been very well represented in animation, like Feet of Clay, one of the best ever Batman animated series episodes. Was there anything in any of the animated Clayface space that was helpful in figuring out what would work well on screen?
Well, the sort of, the Matt Hagen, some of the elements from the Matt Hagen story. I mean, we've definitely magpied around a bit in terms of taking stuff from Feet of Clay, from the comics, from One Bad Day, from all of that. So, the notion of, in Feet of Clay, there's the Renew You lab. And so there's a sort of riff on that with what Caitlin Core, Naomi Aki's character, has. So there's definitely elements, but we've taken them our own place.
Throughout the whole thing, and whether it's a reference to something being called something, or a color palette that's used throughout the film.
I think there's that vibe. The sort of the what really appeals is, without trying to sound too highfalutin, the sort of tragedy of Clayface. Yeah. There's an emotion to that, the emotion of the monster there, of what he's lost, what he wants. It's much more interesting. He's not just a bad guy, he's a good guy that's thrown into a particular situation, and then we can all relate to that and all the choices that he has, and wrestling with the emotions that throws up, and do you give in to your dark side, all those things that we love in, with, I don't know, Darth Vader or whatever, are there with Clayface.
Another thing I'd love to know about this movie is that, obviously, this being our first time in Gotham, we know, Batman looms large over Gotham. Does Matt have any sort of opinions, or is there a public opinion of Batman that Matt sort of leans into?
You're going to have to tune in to find out.
No, the Comic-Con special. Oh God, it's really Comic-Con. I love hearing it. Finally, we've been kind of dancing around this scene on the airplane, and I think it's such a smart scene to really put as the centerpiece of this trailer, because it is celebrating practical effects. It is celebrating the connection to character here. Is there a practical effect in the movie that's not in the trailer that you're especially excited for fans to see? Actually,
Clayface himself, there's a very big practical element in terms of what you see. It's I believe in doing stuff as much as possible on set, and what's real has a tactile quality to it. I mean, there's a lot of practical stuff. There's a lot of body horror stuff with, shaving off bits of skin and things on set that we did. I mean, obviously you didn't actually shave off your skin, but you were practically, doing that, and they have rigs and they can create stuff that comes out. And when you're doing it on set and you can feel it and you can see people looking away and then it works, rather than just kind of taking a leap of faith into something later. Right?
Yeah. I mean, we're so excited. The movie looks incredible. The movie is out on October 23rd. We have plenty more from San Diego Comic-Con. Don't go anywhere.